Over the course of this show, I've taken many an artistic liberty when it comes to band names, sort of morphing for today's band as they used to be just known as Veer. Since they only released one album under that name, I'll be covering the 3 albums that the band known as the Veer Union put out. It's my show, basically, screw you. Considering that they first formed in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada in 2004, you'd think that they'd have more music out, and considering how short their albums are, it's even more confusing. Still, lineup changes, so the Veer Union are a hard-working band that I'm more than happy to cover, all the way from their very best to their very worst. Now, let's face the music. We start with the band's debut album, Against the Grain. Released in 2009, it came out through Universal Motown, was produced by the Veer Union themselves, and it's their longest album at 41 minutes and 56 seconds. Now, background. So, the band first formed in 2004, with current lead singer Chris Pinnell and guitarist Eric Schrader under the name of Just Veer. During this time, they self-released and self-produced their only album under that name called Time to Break the Spell. The album was released to good reviews, and the band got to tour with fellow grunge rock bands like Seether, Hinder, and Theory of a Dead Man. Thanks to this touring opportunity, they gained the interest of Universal Motown, which is pretty cool. Not just gaining the attention of the label, but arguably one of the biggest labels in the world, that's pretty impressive, I have to admit. After the signing and such, the band changed their name from Veer to the Veer Union. It wasn't a forced label change, it wasn't forced, and it wasn't for legal reasons. The band did it themselves. But the main reason was to focus on a more positive name, with the Union part intended to unite people who listen to the band. It's a bit cheesy, but given the band's sound, it does actually work. Speaking of the band, let's go over the lineup of what was the lineup at the time, really quickly. Vocalist Chris Pinnell and guitarist Eric Schrader, as I mentioned. There was also rhythm guitarist Jason Fiddler, bassist Mark Roots, and drummer Neil Beaton. Back to the album itself now. The band released a self-titled EP only a month or two before Against the Grain was released, containing alternate versions of songs as well as unreleased material. It was promoted through the main single Seasons, which appeared on a WWE pay-per-view and as a song for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the band toured the US with the likes of Sick Puppies and Hurt, later doing the same with Framing Hanley and Carvo. So, was this album worth all those names, though? Well, yeah, I like to think so. It's a very bold debut album with good structuring to it, plenty of restraint, but it knows when to pick up the pace too, and lyrics cover love, pain, missing family, and self-belief. And the band do pretty well with it too. Crispin has earned his vocals in a really good range to him. I think he's pretty underrated. Personally, Eric and Jason have good riffs and solos, Mark's bass is nice and pronounced well, and Neil's drumming is fast with good tempos and timing. So next songs include Seasons, Over Me, Your Love Kills Me, Where I Want to Be, and my favourite in Better Believe It. Good rock pacing, solid performances, and an accessible sound combined for a really strong debut, and I can recommend this one. We then reached the band's second album, Divide the Blackened Sky. Released in 2012, it came out through Rocket Science/Red Records. It was again produced by the Veer Union as the band's shortest album at 32 minutes and 15 seconds. It also contains my first The Veer Union song in Bitter Ends. Now, background. So, after how much of a success Against the Grain would wind up being, not to mention all the touring that came with it, the band started work on their second album. But things had to be put on hold for a while. See, despite the debut album's success, the single Season selling it well, and the band having a good relationship with Universal Motown, the label did drop the band sort of out of the blue. Not a great thing when a band is working on new material, and even less so considering that the band had to delay the album's release. There are a few reasons for that, not least of which was the legal trouble surrounding the band's departure from Universal Motown. Another factor was members Jason Fiddler and Mark Roots leaving about a month before the album actually came out. They left really amicably and are still credited on the album, however, so it's nice to know that there's no bad blood there. Thankfully, the band saved all of that negative energy as a big fuck you to Universal Motown, proving how well they could thrive without a major label backing them up. Once again, it wasn't helped by said label dropping them, members leaving, the fact that Crispin and Eric had to put $100,000 into the funding of the album themselves, forcing it to be pushed back from a late 2011 release date, not to mention that it was recorded in 8 different studios across 2 countries. Which is sort of all work for it in a way. Absence can make the heart grow fonder, said that wrong, and pressure sure can make diamonds. And as this was my first album by the band, I can safely say that this one is quite the gem. The shit that the band went through was totally worth it in the end here. Being able to have their own control over things helped, and the structure pays off too, with better pacing and an all-around darker and heavier guitar, and the lyrics cover the hopelessness and pressure that the band felt after all that happened before, and it's all done really well too, obviously covering other topics like their depression and things like that. And the band all kicks ass as well. Crispin's vocal range and delivery are again top-notch. Eric and Jason put in some slicker riffs and solos. Mark has a deep, driven bass, and Neil's drumming is fast, sharp, and pummeling. Standout songs include the title track, Bitter End, Live Another Day, The Closer in Stalin, and my favourite in Silent Gun. Heavier, darker, and surprisingly triumphant in some ways, this album has the neat production and solid performances to back itself up, and I can recommend this one. And finally, we reached their third album, Decade. Released in 2016, it came out through Pavement Records and it was produced by Chris Cornell himself this time. Now, background. Yeah, not a lot to say here. So, after several people left following the release of Divide, and after another record label departure, Crispin was sort of left to build things up back on his own. First was a new lineup, which would be new guitarist Ryan Ramsdale, new bassist MLJ Anayake, and new drummer Tyler Reimer. After sorting out this lineup, the band started a Kickstarter, and after getting enough money, they wrote and released the Life Support Volume 1 EP in 2013. Some point in between, Eric left, and he wasn't fully replaced until 2014 by Dan Sittler, making the band a quintet once again. I suppose that all of that in-between stuff does explain why the gap between albums is the longest, so there you go. However, the title is interesting, as it was technically a decade since their debut under the Veer name, which I'm still not counting, but that does lend to an interesting take with the tracks on the album, as 5 of those are reworked songs from Time to Break the Spell, and the other 5 are completely brand new material. I have to say, it speaks volumes that a band like the Veer Union, who continue to get belted with the bad luck after album cycles, continue to push on strong and grow from the experience. I like the members leading to the EP as the quintessential last-ditch effort, only having Crispin on hand, the Rocket Science label collapsing under financial pressure, not to mention Crispin dealing with his own depression throughout it all. Holy hell, that was quite a lot for him to go through. However, once work actually began to take place on Decade, the process throughout it was surprisingly smooth and organic. Part of that could have been due to the fact that half of the songs on this album are reworks from older material, but that's not a sign of laziness to me. They actually blend into the rest of the album surprisingly well. They go a good tour to support it with the likes of Boba Flex, Artifact, and Bridge to Grace, and the album itself is more than capable of standing on those merits. The structure is again epic in its scope, feeling big and keeping up a melodic but still heavy pacing, and the lyrics cover the band's hardships, depression, and familial issues, and the band themselves are also pretty solid, once again. Crispin's vocals are really good with more emotional weight to them this time around. Ryan and Dan point solid riffs and solos of their own, and Mel's bass work is deep and strong, and Tyler's drum work is fast, spaced out well and heavy, and personally all the new members on this album at least did a really great job. Standout songs include Defying Gravity, not that one, Make Believe, I Don't Care, The Unwanted, and my favourite in We All Will. Better production and another theme of overcoming the past give Decade an edge and sense of hope, with good lyrics and performances to boot. I can recommend this one. Now, let's round them up. My favourite is maybe Divide the Blackened Sky. I love the dark tone of everything, and considering that the album might never have even existed, it's got this sense of hope to it that I quite like. So, yeah. The least favourite is maybe Against the Grain. It's good, but I just don't remember of as much of it as I do for Divide and Decade. But hey, there's no point in veering into other conclusions. Anyway, join me next time where I cover Cedarville, Ohio's own Walls at the Gates. Well, that won't be the next thing I do. There's probably going to be another UFC Fight the Night review, and streaming tomorrow night and the night after. So, yeah. But in terms of backtracking, the next one is Walls at the Gates, so that's what I meant to say. I'm just going to go now. Thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.